You've done a great job of making a living. How well have you done at making a life? What will he do with your family inheritance? What will the family inheritance do with him? How do you make sure your wealth creates independence rather than dependence? Will the wealth you've created last beyond grandchildren? She has her father's eyes and her mother's smile, but will she inherit your values?
Recent studies show that 65% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the end of the second generation. 90% of wealthy families will have lost their wealth by the end of the third generation. This pattern has been referred to as shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The first generation works hard, sacrifices, and makes the money. The second generation enjoys it. The third generation takes it for granted and depletes it, and the fourth generation must start all over again. History shows that if wealthy families are going to preserve their wealth from generation to generation, they must do more than simply implement sound financial strategies. Consider the Vanderbilts. At one time, they were among the wealthiest families in America. They made huge amounts of money, and they spent huge amounts of money. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born in 1794. He grew up on the banks of New York Bay on Staten Island, where his father kept a small farm and ferried goods to Manhattan. He left school at 11, and at 15 he struck his first business deal with his mother. If he would clear, plow, and plant their rocky field by his birthday, she would loan him $100 to buy a boat that he wanted. Well, he did it. Cornelius hoisted sails and started carrying freight and passengers between Staten Island and Manhattan for 18 cents one way, 25 cents round trip. Within a year, he repaid the loan and gave his mother an additional $1,000. The other boatmen soon dubbed this hard-working, hard-cursing young man the Commodore. He was an enormously ambitious man, determined to succeed at all costs. In 1829, Cornelius bought his own steamboat. By the 1840s, he owned a fleet of 100 steamboats and employed more people than any other company in America. The Commodore's dominance was so pervasive that he considered New York Harbor to be his private waterway. In 1864, the Commodore turned 70 years old. His shipping business had led to the accumulation of a vast fortune. But instead of retiring, he decided to try something new: railroads. He first purchased the Harlem Railroad. Within 5 years, he controlled all the overland freight business within the New York area. Cornelius Vanderbilt was extremely successful at acquiring wealth, but his family life was an absolute disaster. In 1813, Cornelius married his second cousin, Sophie Johnson. She would bear him 13 children, 10 of whom survived to adulthood. Cornelius never gave her a penny for the children's necessities. She fed them, sewed their clothes, and bought them shoes with the money she earned working 18 hours a day, operating a family inn for the Commodore. Cornelius would have preferred to pass his fortune on to his 2 sons, but he considered both to be incapable of running the family business. The Commodore showed special disdain to his oldest son, William H., Billy, often referring to him as Chucklehead. Cornelius Jr., his second son, was also subjected to constant ridicule. His relationship with his daughters was even worse. One of his married daughters sold her house and gave him the money to invest for her. After he had doubled it, he refused to return her money, saying to her, "Women are not fit to have money anyway." After the president, no American was more powerful than Cornelius Vanderbilt. At his death in 1877, He was worth over $100 million, more money than was then in the United States Treasury. He left his 8 daughters and Cornelius Jr. with less than $500,000 each. The rest of the estate, over $95 million, went to Billy the Chucklehead. Billy, the second generation, successfully maintained the wealth, but the third generation squandered the family fortune. They had no clear vision of the family's potential, no idea how to manage and preserve the family's wealth. Instead, they focused their energy on spending what the first and second generations had accumulated, and they spent it quickly. They entertained with all the pomp and splendor of royalty. With a lavish lifestyle experienced by very few, they poured their riches into the New York social scene, world cruises, extravagant mansions, and gambling. By 1947, a mere 70 years after the Commodore's death, the vast Vanderbilt fortune had vanished. By failing to teach stewardship principles and values to their posterity, the Vanderbilts became yet another example of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Now, let's talk about another family, the Rothschilds, where financial wealth has been sustained for over 8 generations thus far. In the late 18th century, Meyer Rothschild established the House of Rothschild in Frankfurt, Germany. With unerring judgment and business sense, he laid the foundation of the Rothschild fortune as an investment banker. In 1806, for example, as the German Duke Wilhelm of Hesse-Kassel fled Napoleon's army, he entrusted much of his fortune to Meyer Rothschild. 7 years later, following the war, Wilhelm returned, fully expecting to be told that his assets had been confiscated. To his surprise, Meyer Rothschild returned the Duke's wealth with interest. This act typified Meyer's approach to doing business and further advanced the Rothschild reputation of honesty and integrity. Meyer Rothschild was totally devoted to his children's growth and development. He saw to it that each of his 5 sons was well educated and taught a strong work ethic. In 1810, as his 5 sons approached adulthood, Meyer Rothschild called a formal family meeting. He announced that he was establishing a family partnership and bank. His plan was to set up each of the sons in the banking business in the 5 principal financial capitals of Europe. He offered to loan each son the financial capital to get started. The understanding was that each son would repay the family bank, so further loans could be made to future family members. He provided that each son would retain ownership of his individual bank once the original loan had been repaid. He charged each of his sons to be his eyes and ears in his city of employment. The political and economic information gained by the sons was forwarded to their father. Meyer Rothschild then shared this information with each of the other sons. This pooling of the family's talents and intellectual capital created a synergism whereby each member gained more than he contributed. It gave them a distinct advantage over their banking rivals. Meyer Rothschild mentored each of his sons, encouraging them to be good stewards of not only their own personal, but also the family's wealth. On his deathbed, Meyer Rothschild gathered his sons around him and re-emphasized the importance of family harmony and unity. He handed them a bundle of 5 arrows and explained that each of the arrows represented one of his sons. He pointed out that the arrows as a bundle could not be broken, but that separately they could. He strongly urged his sons to stay united and let nothing come between them. The arrows became part of the family crest, reinforcing the family motto of unity, integrity, and hard work. By understanding that their wealth consisted not only of financial capital, but of human, intellectual, social, and spiritual capital as well, the Rothschilds have successfully preserved their wealth from generation to generation. In spite of numerous challenges, including nearly being annihilated in the Holocaust, the Rothschild family has been able to survive and thrive. To be a Rothschild today, 200 years after the founding of the House of Rothschild, is to be regarded as a member of a very successful multi-generational family. The Vanderbilt and Rothschild families illustrate that the fundamental issue of wealth preservation goes far beyond acquiring financial assets. It has to do with instilling trust, values, ethics, and vision, with the ongoing commitment to a guiding family philosophy. The preservation of family wealth and values is not a random occurrence. Let us help you create the legacy that you will leave to your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. We invite you to use our process, our systematic approach, so that your family will be the 1 in 10 whose wealth continues across generations.